This vlog was brought to you by the Office of Community Engagement and Diversity Initiatives at Nevada State College. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's vlog. Thank you for watching. I'm doing well. This week I'm mainly focusing on studying, completing these last few weeks of the semester, and just trying to keep my head steady and keeping myself busy. And again, just giving myself time to relax and breathe. We know that this time is very overwhelming for a lot of people. A lot of people are going through a lot of things simultaneously, but it is important to maintain your own mental health and take care of yourself and give yourself a break when needed.
Hello, this is Lorenzo Luna. Quick update on me. I'm doing good. My grandparents are still doing good. We haven't really done anything. Just clean the house. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I've been at home, like most of you. I've been taking it slowly. Recently I've been getting more into my paintings. I did order some watercolor paper online, so I've been working on some art. This one's just some oranges and leaves, and then I also did this one. But yeah, that's all I've been doing pretty much, just working, homework, and painting.
This week we're going to be talking about the AAPI community, which is the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. We have created this vlog this week to provide some insight and create awareness. We will not be able to cover all the cultures, of course, as this is a very diverse community, but we will be focusing on a few different groups, and we'll be talking about their cultures, their history in the United States, as well as their contributions and influence on American culture. Like many people, the Chinese immigrants came to the United States during the 1850s for the California Gold Rush. After this was done, Chinese people were looked at for cheap labor, such as farm workers, laundry workers, gardeners, as well as people to help work on the railroads. They built the Transcontinental Railroad, and it was completed in the 1860s. Something important to keep in mind is the fact that only men were working on the railroad because the 1875 Page Act actually restricted Chinese women from coming into the United States at all. And it also prevented Chinese men from marrying American women in order to prevent Chinese people from procreating. When the Chinese Act was passed in 1882, it became the first law implemented that prevented all members of a specific ethnic or national group from immigrating into the U.S. It also excluded Chinese nationals from eligibility for United States citizenship. By the 1870s, an economic depression had hit the United States, and jobs were few and far between. At this point, a lot of hostility grew because many people were blaming the Chinese. This is when the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 came about. Congress finally repealed the act in 1943 when China became America's ally in World War II. But even at this time, only 105 Chinese people were allowed into the country per year. By 1965, all restrictions were removed, allowing Chinese people to freely immigrate to the United States. Today, there are about 2.5 million Chinese Americans in the United States.
So, food is a large part of everyone's culture. In Chinese culture, food was something very interesting to learn about, with ingredients such as soy sauce, garlic, and ginger, along with what they actually used to cook, such as woks, clay pots, and steamers. Places like Panda Express are very Americanized in how they make the food and what even goes in their food. A lot of Chinese cuisine is based off of fish, rice, and vegetables. Of course, that is very broad, and many varying factors and dishes don't even involve these things, like dumplings, for example. But just seeing what they use and how they cook food really shows a world of difference of what I personally have been so used to and what I've been exposed to my entire life. I think learning about food, especially from other cultures, is very exciting and it's very interesting.
Large-scale immigration from Vietnam to the United States began at the end of the Vietnam War, when the fall of Saigon in 1975 led to the U.S.-sponsored evacuation of an estimated 125,000 Vietnamese refugees. As a humanitarian crisis and displacement of people in the Indochina region intensified, more refugees and their families were admitted to the United States. The Vietnamese immigrant population has grown significantly since then, roughly doubling every decade between 1980 and 2000, and then increasing 26% in the 2000s. In 2017, more than 1.3 million Vietnamese resided in the United States, accounting for 3% of the nation's 44.5 million immigrants, and representing the sixth largest foreign-born group in the country.
So Vietnamese food is particularly hard for me to speak on because admittedly, I have hardly eaten any Vietnamese food before. From what I've researched, some traditional ingredients range from lemongrass, coriander, and even mint. And all those are very light, airy spices and aromatics. And they make things like spring rolls, pho, and noodle dishes such as gao lao.
During World War II, Hawaii became firmly ensconced in the American national identity, followed by the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941. In the 1850s, Hawaii's plantation production was on the rise, and a need for more labor was realized. The first workers are recruited from China. By the early 20th century, workers also make their way from Japan, Korea, Philippines, and Portugal. They sign their sugar plantation contracts and stay. This blending of cultures in such close geographic quarters would ultimately influence the many things we consider uniquely Hawaiian. Hawaii has contributed to the United States by offering diversity and welcoming many visitors to its islands. There have been multiple public figures come from Hawaii, such as former President Barack Obama and singers like Bruno Mars, who have greatly influenced our country and pop culture. On August 21st, 1959, Hawaii became the United States' 50th state. President Dwight Eisenhower signed a proclamation admitting Hawaii into the Union as the 50th state. The first known settlers of the Hawaiian Islands were Polynesian voyagers, who arrived sometime in the 8th century. In the early 18th century, American traders came to Hawaii to exploit the island's sandalwood, which was much valued in China at the time. In the 1830s, the sugar industry was introduced to Hawaii, and by the mid-19th century had become well established.
So native Hawaiian food is another that I really haven't delved too deeply into besides eating poke. Now, I used to think poke was a Japanese dish, but after doing some research, I've learned that it's just heavily influenced from sashimi, but it's a type of dish. But basically, a poke bowl is usually derived from a raw fish, usually tuna, and from my experience, it's typically served with sesame, soy sauce, and some sprigs of green onion. But one thing that I do know that is very interesting is how kalua pork is made, which is a pig that is covered in banana leaves and is actually slow roasted and cooked underground. It is called an emu, but ways of cooking like that, for instance, are very traditional and have to follow very specific procedures. And I think just learning about that is so cool and it's so interesting.
After the United States defeated Spain in the Spanish-American War, the U.S. government did not withdraw its troops from former Spanish colonies. This included the Philippines, Cuba, and Guam. Instead, the United States sent troops over to the Philippines to subjugate anyone who was not willing to cooperate with the new rule, and the US basically set up their own colonial government in the Philippines. During this time, American teachers were sent to the Philippines, and students from the Philippines were sent to America. Between 1903 and 1938, about 14,000 government subsidized Filipino students came to America. In 1934, Congress passed the Tidings-McDuffie Act. This established the Philippines as a commonwealth, leading them to ultimate independence. At this point, Filipinos were no longer considered American national, and the U.S. allowed 50 Filipino immigrants to come into the country per year. After World War II, the United States recognized the Philippines' full independence. However, the U.S. government still remained in the Philippines to some extent. In 1964, Congress passed the Lucy-Seller Bill, which basically increased the quota of Filipino immigrants from 50 to 100 persons per year. In 2015, there were about 3.9 million Filipinos in America.
Filipino food has a lot of influences from Spaniard food to different types of Asian cuisine as well. A few staples of Filipino food are chicken adobo or arroz caldo. But one thing I learned with food, which I thought was really cool because I related it back to my culture, and coming from a Hispanic point of view, a lot of Mexican food, and my grandparents always want to put salsa on everything. It's crazy, and I thought it was really cool and interesting seeing the food and hearing about it and watching videos about it. It seems very close to Hispanic culture in the way that you're always expected to always eat the food no matter what it is, and you're always supposed to eat all of it. I just think it's really cool.
As mentioned before, Japanese were also part of the sugar industry in Hawaii. Plantation labor was harsh. The monthly wage was only $4, of which the planters withheld 50%. The 10-hour workdays were hard on the soft hands of former potters, printers, and tailors. 40 of these first Japanese farmers returned to Japan before completion of their 3-year contracts. Once home, 39 of them signed a public statement charging the planters with cruelty and breach of contract. Although the United States has had a rocky history with the Japanese, in current day society, we see them living along Americans of all kinds of ethnicities. They are considered part of our communities and contribute greatly to our country. The Japanese community have also made significant contributions to the agriculture of western United States, particularly in California and Hawaii. They improved upon the sophisticated irrigation methods introduced by their 19th century immigrant ancestors that enabled the cultivation of fruit, vegetables, and flowers on previously marginal lands. While they prospered in the early 20th century, most lost their farms when they were forcibly interned in internment camps across the United States after the start of World War II. The internments were based on their race and ancestry rather than by the activities of the citizens. Ironically, at the same time, many Japanese Americans served with great distinction in the war, along with American forces.
When talking about Japanese food, it is very easy to just talk about sushi or tempura or even like udon noodles, especially with sushi having such an impact on the Western world, along with things like the portrayal of food in anime, like especially in like Naruto, very mainstream anime. The main character Naruto eats a lot of ramen. What I wanted to talk about is tamagoyaki. That dish kind of symbolizes Japanese cooking. So tamagoyaki is basically, how I describe it, is an egg croissant. It's a type of omelet that is folded over several times and formed into the perfect cube shape. Very small dishes are typically served with Japanese meals.
Thank you for watching this week's vlog highlighting some cultures of the AAPI community. Tune into our social media accounts on April 28th. We'll be featuring a video doing some outreach to the AAPI community. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.